Hello, and welcome to Weekend Wisdom. My name is Tracy Whitney, and I'm your host for today's conversation about talking about the hard parts of a child's story. If you have a question about adoption, foster care, or raising a relative child, please email us at info@creatingafamily.org. Put Weekend Wisdom in the subject line, and we'll add your question to the queue and possibly host it on a future episode. Today's question is anonymous from Minnesota, and they say, I recently listened to the podcast featuring an adoptee, birth mother, and adoptive parent, which was great. The adoptee talked about when it hit her that she was adopted and feeling like her birth mother threw her away. My sons are adopted through the foster care system. One is technically still a foster child. My oldest was removed from his birth mother immediately after being born and placed with us. My second son spent about a year with his parents in a very neglectful situation, and drugs were a factor in both situations. I'm wondering how to respectfully have that conversation with my sons when the time comes. Note, please, that we are a two-dad household, so there's no hiding the adoption from them. So, listener from Minnesota, first of all, thank you so much for writing in and for being vulnerable and sharing your concern about talking about these difficult things. Before we talk about how to tell the hard truths, let's start with what children need to know, no matter how their adoption happened. Across decades of lived and researched experience, we've learned that children need to hear these few core messages early and often. Number 1, you were wanted. Number 2, what happened was not your fault. Number 3, your feelings, whatever they are okay. And number 4, you can ask questions anytime, and we'll tell you the truth in ways that we hope you can understand, and we'll help you understand it. So those are kind of the 4 messages that our kids need to hear over and over and over again from as soon as we meet them. They don't need all the facts of their story at once. They do need truth and safety and room to grow into that story over time. The telling is not a single conversation. It's more about the relationship that unfolds across their childhood and the context that your relationship has in that story. One thing that many parents don't realize is that children don't fully understand the concepts and the principles of adoption the first time they hear about it. And that's okay. They're kids. They're learning. And so they may have no context for it. They may have no language behind them that would bring them to an easier understanding of adoption. And so at the earliest stages that we have them in our lives, we have to start layering that understanding in. So we'll start with the preschool and early elementary crowd. And at this stage, kids think really concretely. They understand, I grew in another person's body, my dads are my forever parents, and I need help to be safe. They don't yet grasp the permanence of the loss that they experienced. They don't totally understand neglect or addiction, or the difference between adult responsibilities and kids' responsibilities. And so the early telling of their story should be done simply, gently, without a lot of heavy details. So because our listener doesn't specify exactly how old the children are, we're going to move on now to school-aged kids and talk about how to talk to them about the hard parts of an adoption story. Adoption often kind of hits them emotionally right around the school-aged years. They will start asking questions like, why couldn't my first parents take care of me? Did my first parents love me? Why did my first parents use drugs? Why did my first parents drink? Any of those questions that are pertinent to their story, they're going to start to ask about them. And that's a normal developmental shift. It's not a sign that you didn't do something right in the telling of their story. They're not blaming you. They're not looking to blame their first parents. They're seeking to understand. And so you'll want to address their level of understanding to the question that they ask. So answer that question gently, simply, and in an unfolding way with just the information that you know to be true. So when they become tweens and teens, their adoption story becomes much more personal, and it goes towards how they're forming their identity. Their grief and anger and curiosity starts to kind of feel like it's conflicted. They might feel like they should be loyal to their birth parents, but they don't know how to be loyal to birth parents who maybe have harmed them or who have neglected them. And your job is not to stop any of those feelings. And it's hard to watch a child navigate all of those conflicting feelings, but you don't want to stop the feelings. You want to walk with your child through the feelings. So you want to be present for their pain, witness their pain and say, I see how much pain this is causing you. I see how much confusion this is causing you. Name it if you can, or maybe in a wondering way, say, I wonder if you're feeling really conflicted right now because you think maybe you should love your birth mother. It's okay to name it, not have an answer for it. It's okay to wonder about it, and then walk with them through it as they're learning how to name it and process it. Learning how to talk about the hard parts of our kids' adoption story is an ongoing process for you, their parents, and for them. Grasping the nitty-gritty and the painful and the challenging details of their story can sometimes feel like it's just kind of just out of grasp and not quite tangible, but it's just this process that you have to keep layering and kind of keep going after. So figure out how to be patient with yourself and with your partner. Figure out how to be patient with your child and their developmental processing of the information and the story, and gather some really good, reliable resources around you and your partner and your family as you learn how to navigate these conversations. I want to also talk specifically about neglect, abuse, and removal, because these are often the very hardest pieces of their story that our kids have to navigate. And so I want to give just a couple very practical tips for how to navigate those things. Number one is to use developmentally honest language. The truth should be accurate, but it should also be age appropriate to your child's ability to understand it. So for young children, that might sound like your first parents had problems that made it really hard to keep you kids safe. Kids need safe grown-ups who can keep them safe. And so you were put into the foster care system to make sure somebody could keep you safe. For older children, it might sound like using drugs can really change the way a brain works, and it can make it hard for adults to make safe choices. That was not your fault. It's a good idea to avoid graphic details or moralizing language that would sound like you're judging their birth family or their birth parents, and try to avoid oversharing of adult failures. Kids don't deserve to carry the weight of those challenges, and certainly not while they're still grappling with their story. A second tip to help you practically navigate some of these challenging conversations is to separate love from capacity. It's really important that our kids understand that their birth parents could have loved them very, very much, but may not have had the capacity to take care of them safely. So children will often assume, if my parents loved me, they would have kept me. And it's not that simple. And it's going to be a hard one for them to grapple with, but you need to help them understand sometimes adults love their children, but they still can't take care of them well or safely. Reframing it will help protect our kids from any internalized shame that they may have about their story. It'll help them not make it about themselves and what was wrong with them. Many adoptees, especially as they mature to adulthood, experience a moment where their adoption actually feels like a rejection from their birth family. And when that happens, it's really important that we don't resist that notion, that we don't correct them or argue with them. We need to let them feel what they're feeling. So we want to validate that feeling. Yes, I'm sorry. That does feel a lot like rejection. And then stay present with them. I'm here with you. I'm not going anywhere. I will be available to talk whenever and however you want to talk about it. And then let it be complicated and acknowledge the complications. Man, this is really confusing stuff, isn't it? I'm sorry that you're having to walk through it, but I just want you to know I'm going to walk with you through it. You could say something like, I understand why it feels that way. Adoption includes loss, and it is okay with me if you feel sad or angry about that loss. You don't necessarily have to defend adoption or fix their feelings. Your calm presence will tell your children that you are capable of handling these hard, confusing conversations, and that you'll be there to help them metabolize the truth safely. We also want to recommend, anytime we can, we want to give you guys concrete tools for handling things that your kids have to navigate. Adoption life books are a great tool to help you and your child navigate conversations. Seeing their story visually kind of helps them process in new and different ways. There's that old saying that the more ways you can get information into you, the better you can process the information. And that's true of an adoption story. So it will help them ask questions. They'll key in on different parts every different time they look at the life book. They'll notice different things about their story, and they'll be able to just ask the questions that come up. It also helps them revisit the information as they grow and adjust their understanding as they're growing. Because sometimes they may have a faulty understanding, and then they go back to the life book and go, oh, that's not really what happened. And here's what really happened. Now I need to metabolize that and process that. It helps them understand that their life did not begin at placement in your home. And it helps you remember that their life did not begin at placement in your home, that all parts of their story matter, and everything they bring to your home before they came to you matters. We also really recommend reading books with kids about adoption, even if the exact story that you're reading doesn't match your child's adoption story. Reading books about adoption kind of normalizes the whole idea that families are built in many different ways. And it also tells them that their story matters. It matters enough for somebody to have written a book about adoption. So Creating a Family has an excellent selection of books about adoption for kids, covering all different types of adoption and all the ages and stages that we identified earlier in this conversation. And I will make sure that the page to our suggested book resources are listed in the show notes. Another tool for helping our kids navigate these hard conversations I mentioned earlier is repetition and checking in. When you revisit with them the ideas about their adoption story at different ages and stages, it helps them think, it helps them feel free to think and then wonder out loud. And try to remember that even if they're not asking questions, it doesn't mean that they're not thinking about it. I can guarantee you, even if they're not asking questions, they are thinking about it. So bring it up gently. Be the one to initiate the conversation. Do you have any new questions about your story lately? Or, hey, we watched this movie the other day and it made me wonder if you ever wonder about your birth mother, like that character in the movie was wondering about their birth mother. In closing, try to remember the most important takeaway from all of this in talking to our kids about the hard parts of their story is that you're not protecting your children by hiding the truth. You protect them and prepare them well by telling their story with love and honesty and respect for the developmental stage they are in when you tell it. Adoption can hold gratitude and grief at the same time. It can hold love and loss at the same time. It can hold safety and sadness at the same time. And doing that with our kids, modeling it for them and teaching them that they can do it too is a protective factor that helps them understand the truth of their whole story and incorporate it or metabolize it, as I said earlier, into their whole person and their whole identity. Your willingness to stay present with them while they do that is what will help them heal and help them develop an appropriate and accurate picture of who they are and where they came from. Thank you, listeners from Minnesota, for writing in. We hope that you'll consider joining our online community at facebook.com/groups/creatingafamily. You'll find plenty of other parents and caregivers who are wrestling with these same questions and learning on the fly as they go how to talk to their kids about the hard parts of their stories. You'll get support, peer learning, and a sense of community over there for helping you raise these little guys that you have in your home. So thanks again for writing into us. I hope this information helped you and any other listeners who are hearing it today, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all again next week.